Okay, this is Gunsmith Tips and Tricks Volume 1. Things I've learned as I've played this game over the last week, and it is far more addictive than I thought it was going to be. Far more addictive. Uh, I've said this before. This is what Factorio needed, a reason to do the things you're doing. Which is why there's so many mods to Factorio, because people get bored with just launching a rocket. They want stuff to do. And so this lets you do all kinds of stuff. But some tips and tricks that I've learned. Let's look at my line control panels. Don't have to be next to lines. So you've got a line here of what's this making? What are we making? Things. Pants. You got this whole line of pants. This guy doesn't have to be here. I can click that and drag it and put it clear over here. Oops, correctly, and this panel will still attach to this line. And so what I've been doing with my new factories is putting all of my staff next to the break room. One of the things you'll notice is that it takes forever. If you have these things spread all over, people got to go to the break room when they get mad and frustrated, so they got to go chill out. So if they're a shorter trip, that means your production lines are down longer, because this one's down because the guy running this thing is either not there. I don't have one. He quit. That's another thing. People can quit. So he either quit or he's on a break, and they can go on breaks and they get mad and they go chill out in the break room, and then they come back and work. But while they're doing that, your line's down. So the shorter the trip for break and getting back to work, the better, the smoother things are going to be. And you really only want to have your mechanics running around. That's the only people you want to have going from job to job, is your mechanics, right? So your line control panels do not have to be next to the line that they're monitoring or controlling. Another one is flow merge control. So here's a merge right here. And you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the product coming into your merge lines. You can have it just, both these lines are receiving pants, and so it doesn't matter what order they go out of, because it's all pants. It's going into the boxing machine. But it's totally possible there are machines that need one in one of a thing, but they only have one input. There's only one input. I'm thinking of making metal bars is a good example of that. Metal bars takes an aluminum block and a steel block, but it's only one import. So setting a merge machine in so that you get metal and then aluminum, or steel and then aluminum coming in, you want to make sure that you're flowing a 1-to-1 ratio, because what you can do is have, if you set it wrong, then over time you're going to have 100 steel ingots or steel bars in there, steel whatever they're called, and no aluminum. And so that whole thing is backed up now and it's stuck. So no more product can go in. So you want to make sure that it alternates between the two. So steel bar, metal bar, steel bar, aluminum bar, steel bar, aluminum bar, steel, aluminum, steel, aluminum, steel, aluminum. That way it's balanced. It doesn't work with just these. You got to make sure that your flow out here as well. These are simple blocks. Is this the quad flow splitter? These work the same way. It alternates between the outputs and exits. So if I have this one going here and this one going here, and if I quick belt them up and then I click on that, I thought it was, oh, it's these, the flow mergers. Wait, doing it backwards. Yeah, the mergers, the ones that come in. You want to set your merging there as well. So something to really pay attention to, especially if you get more complicated builds going. You can really screw some things up. Another thing is dispenser output speeds versus repair. I have some other factories, not here, and I don't feel like going to them, where I'm not outputting. Actually, let's go, where was that? Kevlar. Let's go over to my Kevlar station. was making. Was making Kevlar vests. That's where it is. Kevlar vest. Let's go check it out. As I had built this out all with belts, and then I realized what recyclers do. That's a game changer, by the way. We'll talk about that here in a second. I wanted to make sure. Oh, we got a lot. My computer's going to die. So we have these cutters that are taking the Kevlar sheet material and they're making Kevlar vests. And here they go. The problem was, and this runs right down into a recycler. So if I look at my local inventory, I can see the number of vests I have. It's going up. It's also not going up very long because I've got other dispensers that are taking those sheets elsewhere. It just worked out better this way. So I wanted a higher output. What you can do is you can adjust your output speeds for that so that it's actually spitting out the product a lot faster. The only downside of that is you're going to tear through you got to make sure you got mechanics in here and that are going around fixing stuff, because that's going to decrease your durability or increase the drain on that, if that makes sense. So this is another thing to do, is just make sub little factories for everything. Oh, that's ridiculous. So this all goes to a recycler, and then I have these here that take the vests and spit them out, along with a resin tank. It spits them out, and you can adjust these however it takes to get things going out a heck of a lot faster, so that you can make, the end goal is to make the end product Kevlar armor as fast as possible so that you can sell more. Use intermediate factories and global stock. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm using intermediate factory or recyclers. Wait, intermediate factories. I don't have any of those here, I don't think. But what that is, if we go to here's a good example. It's a two-part step. I have a gun cotton facility making gun cotton. That's all it does. It just makes gun cotton. So it's a little chemical plant out here. This is early stage, so it doesn't use recyclers as much as it should, but I could totally fix all this stuff. Here's what happens when you don't use recyclers. And you try to belt it with all of these splitters. You end up with the first thing has 100 cotton, 100 of what it needs, and then later down I got nothing. So this is really inefficient because you only have half of your line making a thing. But all of this goes through an intermediate boxing machine. And what that does is allows your product to go out into the global market. So it makes it, and then if you go out to your global stock, you can have it automatically sent up here to the global market or your global stock. So I've got 46,000 cotton, gun cotton, out here on the market. And that is just automatically being sent through my intermediate items. You can drop this down and say only send 100 at a time, or wait till you have 100 then send it. Wait till I have 1,000 then send them up. Bang! See, it just went. So it's just, that's all it does, is just makes gun cotton and sends it out to the global stock, so that when I go to my bullet machine or bullet factory, I just have 9mm right here or right now. So we go to 9mm factory and wait for it to load. And so then what we're doing here is, once it loads, where's the gun cotton at? I think they're down here. Here we go. Gun cotton, 23,000. Because it's pulling from, when you go to check your output, you want to look at your select from your inventory, right? Because if I come up here and look at my inventory here, I've got 23,000 gun cotton. And how you get those here is you have to have a market guy, and you come into global stock and you set up an automation rule for importing into this facility. So just for this location, I'm saying, hey, import from my global stock 100 gun cotton if the amount that's owned at this location is 5,000 or less. So keep it at 5,000, maybe a little bit more, right? So that is how you get items from your global stock into your facility that you're at. It's just for this factory alone. Okay. So it does it, and then you just have dispensers, and you use chemical dispensers, and you do your output from your local inventory, not your other areas. So that's pretty handy way to have one facility out there in the universe making one product and then using it in another. Use intermediate factories for global stock. Hey, we just talked about that. Recyclers, game changer. Let's go to my Humvee factory real quick, where I'm using recyclers a lot. I just set this up, by the way. Humvee factory, work in progress. Recyclers will take products from a line and put it into that factory's inventory. And the reason you want to do this is so that, one, you have less belts to deal with. Transferring of stock is a lot faster, or materials or products is a lot faster. So let me go down here. Hopefully my computer doesn't die. This game is so fun, but it uses every bit of my NVIDIA RTX 2080 8 gig. It takes every bit of it. I don't know why. So here's a factory that we're talking about. So what is this? This machine is making Humvee dash parts, and it's taking in some large aluminum blocks, and it's also taking in some copper block and some plastic block. It's melting that down into circuit boards, and it's reassembling everything into dashes. And so instead of having a crap ton of belts all over the place and trying to figure out that nightmare, all we're doing is putting those into a recycler, and that recycler puts those into this factory's inventory so that I can see I've got 196 dash parts ready to go. They're just there. It's just going. And so then if I come down to where the dashboards are being used in this factory, it needs dashboards. All I have is a medium dispenser, and I say, hey, grab the output from my current location's inventory. And bang, it just gets them from there. It just grabs them. So in order to, it keeps things cleaner, it keeps things organized. Everything is great. One thing you got to be careful though is overproducing a part of something. Let's say if I did this for gloves, and or something else that needed like fittings. You can mass produce plastic fittings like mad. You could have, if you use this method of using your recycler, you could have 150 billion fittings sitting in that factory doing nothing. Well, what's the downside of that, Aaron? What's all the money that you're spending more money to make fittings, although they're cheap? And are you making enough? Apparently not. Making enough gloves or whatever the case is needed for those. Are you selling enough? So you have an opportunity, or if you're not careful, you could way overproduce. And watch your cookbook layout with your recyclers. Local inventories can't be deleted. So let's say, and I found this out the hard way, let's say there's no way for me to delete the 204 bonnet boots out of here. So you want to make sure that the product that you're making can be either used intermediate or can't be. is I made the mistake with this. I said, hey, let's just go out and I'll have all these sub factories. So I've got 5 sub factories that I was just going to make dashboards. I was just going to make bonnet boots. I was, the whole thing was making seats. Well, seats and medium items cannot be transferred in intermediate. So now I've got all these factories that have 400, 700 seats sitting out there. I can't do anything with them. They're just sitting there. I can't delete them. I can't do anything. And that's the other problem with your inventory. When using it like this, you got to be careful. Another mistake I made was I had one line that was making gloves, but wasn't sewing after the final, before they get boxed. So I have like 5 gloves that haven't been sewn. They just go into the general storage and they look like gloves. And so when I try to set them up, send them through a boxing, the boxing will fail because it doesn't have the correct parts that it needs. Well, how do you, you're just totally hosed at that point. So I've got a complete glove line that is complete waste, and there's no way to sell factories either. Again, another thing I was going to mention, tips, is with your blueprints, I highly recommend, if we open up our blueprints, I highly recommend using global, especially if you're going to have multiple factories. I have a folder. You can create a new folder for everything you got. So for backpacks, this is all the little pieces that I need for my backpack production. If I go to Humvees, I can see that dashboards, if I need more dashboards real quick, I can just bang, stamp that down. And one nice thing about this is if I stamp it down, I've included in this, not this one. Why didn't I update that? Fine, let's go to parts. There we go. If I go to my parts, I've included a tools station so that my repair guy can make tools. I've also included all of the heat and cold and power needed to run this group. You can check out how much power you need for various things once you assign them into a control line. So if I've got a control line here, where is this? It's right here. Let's go look at it real quick. All 3 of these items need 50 heat, 50 cold, and 450 power. So I've got 50, 50, and 500. So I've got plenty of extra. If you include those, which I didn't do with that one, if you include those with your blueprint, then every time you stamp that down, I never have to worry about going back and adding more power. How much does it need? It's already included in it. So super handy thing to do. What line was this? Dashes. So let's go back and let's talk about updating our blueprints. So here's one right here that I need to update because it has everything it needs. So I'm going to go X to blueprint. I'm going to shift, click and drag all of these pieces in here. And I know this is my dash, so I want to update my current Humvee dash with this to include the new pieces. I can hit this circle thing here and it's going to overwrite with the current selection and then check the box. And so now when I go to stamp this down for dashboards, it's going to have those new pieces with it. Another handy tip is while you're here in your blueprints, you can hold shift, click and drag, and then click this demolish button and it will just delete everything that you've selected. You can also do multiple selections. So you just click and drag multiple parts and you can just delete everything at once. And as far as making blueprints, because you're going to run into that too, you can click and drag this section and then I can click and drag this section, or you can just single click while you're adding here. So I want to add that. To remove it is to control click. So I'm going to remove that. So if I like this whole line and I want to add this to a new blueprint, I'm just going to call this one, you stamp it and then you got to rename it Humvee parts all. So if I needed to duplicate all that again, bang, I've got my, go away. I've got my whole thing. I can just double the amount of product that I'm going to output and have all the power, have tools, have everything ready to go. Back up your blueprints. Here's another tip. The game will crash. It's already crashed on me once, and that's nothing against the developers. I'm sure this is still beta. We're in 0.6 beta, so they're still working on it. They're still making updates. I know they're working feverishly on belts. Back up your blueprints. How you do that? Come over here to share blueprints, and then I check everything, all my folders for all my things. I go global and check everything. And then what I do is I go to text export, and you have to give it a name, ABA global all, and wait for this to be prepared. So then you click it, and this will generate, it's probably JSON text. And then what I do is I open up like Notepad. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just Notepad, paste it in there, file, and then save that as a file on your drive, put it on a flash drive, whatever you want. I've got blueprints all right there, Gunsmith blueprints all. I'm going to overwrite it. Yeah, I'm going to replace it. So now if anything happens to my game, or if I want to share my blueprints, I can just zip that up, send it to a friend, whatever the case, put it out on Steam, the Discord channel, whatever the case. So I think that's all the ones I could think of at this point. Stay tuned, keep watching. Definitely going to keep playing this. I spent some time today making the Humvee line. Next is tanks, and I've got 5 extra empty facilities or factories that I think I'm going to go back and make some machine guns or maybe some TNT or something. Anyway, hope you enjoyed.